What is going on, Governors? Chisgule here, and today we're going to talk about how you can best prepare for war, bringing you some possibly unexpected and then some expected tips. We're going to give you a full checklist. That'll be in the comments of this video or as a sticky post so that you can enjoy that as well and refer back to it whenever you'd like. Now, we are sponsored by the creators of Rise of Civilizations, and if you like war preparation videos, you should like and subscribe because we're going to give you a bunch of those. Now, hopefully, some number of these tips were things that you didn't expect and will aid you in war. The first of those tips that I think might be somewhat unexpected for folks is your physical position, and there's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot to talk about here because normally when you're in a state of peace, you want to be positioned like my alliance member is here, Luigi Vampa, who is at the edge of a flag. And that is because you want lots of good resources to spawn within your flags because you get a resource harvesting boost when you're harvesting resource nodes that are within your flags. So by not crowding that center area of your flags, you get more goodies to harvest, and that's very, very good. But in a time of war, being on a flag edge is a very dangerous position because someone can teleport right next to you and send a whole bunch of armies at you to try to zero you out. Now, if you're a player who's not spent a lot of money in the game, you're particularly vulnerable to this type of attack. So what I would recommend is you try to be in the center of where your flags are if you think an attack is coming. And I want to show you my position because I put a lot of thought into this particular position and I really like it. And a part of the reason that I like it is that I'm near this river. Now, the river looks not particularly significant at first blush, right up until you try to use a teleport. When I try to use a teleport, you can see here, oh, I zoomed out too much. We'll do that again. You can see that there's a lot of area that the river blocks off, and it makes it really freaking hard to go just about anywhere near me, which is very powerful. So even though there's this patch that looks like it's kind of open, it's actually not particularly open because there's all of these obstacles and red lines that are blocking me from being able to teleport there. So I like this position I'm in, even though it doesn't look like I'm all that close to my hive, because in fact I am relatively close to my alliance members, and I'm also close to the areas where I like to be farming. So this position seems really good, and you should be thinking about positioning yourself so you are near your hive and not able to be teleported next to and zeroed out by someone who sends a swarm attack against you. If you're interested in more information about swarm attacks, I've got a Garrison Commander video. I'll have a card up in the top about that. Now, the next tip, and this might sound a little weird, is to farm Lohar's trial event like crazy. I'm told that also the Cleopatra supply box event does this, and most recently the saddle event for Christmas had a whole bunch of arrows of resistance that they dropped. And arrows of resistance are essential for leveling up your watchtower. The watchtower is a monster. I described this in a recent video about how troops die. So powerful in defending your city. But it requires an unbelievable number of these arrows of resistance to level up. But the good news is that events like Lohar's Trial drop a ton of these things. So if you still need Lohar, that's a great event to be doing. And I actually have saved up some number of these bone necklaces. We'll just pop them all real quick so I can show you. So with 11 bone necklaces, we got 20 arrows of resistance. This is a really big deal. These events are a true gift for leveling up your watchtower, and you should be using your potions like crazy to both benefit from the event and doing well in the event and level up that watchtower. I went totally overboard in the farming portion of the saddle event that just happened recently. Go nuts. You won't regret it. I did regret, on the flip side of that, having a ton of action point potions when I was in war because they do you nothing and you really need to convert them into some amount of resources that are truly valuable to you and make you stronger in war. Now, the next tip, and I didn't do this for myself and I really should have, is to actually write down the full talent builds of any commanders that you plan to change around the specialization for when you're about to go to war. Let me give an example. You may have seen in some of my recent videos that I had a rally build on my Minamoto, and I swapped it over to be a full PvP oriented build when I had a sense that combat was coming. And right now, I'm trying out a max rage build with the skill tree maxed, at least for the required talents to get feral nature, and then also picking up unyielding fury. I'm not sure if this is a final build that I'll fall in love with, or if this is what I would necessarily recommend to you, but it's a whole heck of a lot better than the peacekeeping talents that I had on him before. So you should write these things down so you're not in a panic when war comes, and especially if you don't have notice. One of my favorite quotes, and this is actually from the movie Thor, and I know a whole bunch of folks on my kingdom will appreciate a Thor reference here, which is that you should never seek out war, but always be ready for it. I love that quote. On the topic of being ready, one of the crucial preparations is to set your garrison commanders for your wall. It is very crucial to set the right commanders for your garrison, because if you do end up being attacked, you can either punish your enemies or suffer heavily by virtue of having the wrong commanders at the wall. I've got a video that details this in depth. Highly recommend it. I'll have a card so that you can go check that out. Now, the final tip that I have that might be kind of unexpected is that you need to get everyone from your alliance into voice chat if you can. You just got to take my word for it that after having done a lot of competitive high-end gaming, that, yeah, being in voice is just infinitely better than trying to communicate with in-game chat. And that's not a knock against in-game chat, but literally, if you log in, it's not going to have a record of chats that happened before you logged in. So it's much better to be using a chat service like Discord. That's my preference. And you should try to coordinate with your alliance leader to get that set up because it is night and day. Now let's get into the checklist of things that I think you might have been expecting. And these are things that probably you were already doing, but is important for us to go over. Now, the first is that you need to have a ton of resources stockpiled, at least 10 or 20 million of each, and that's if you're using T4 troops. A whole bunch of Speedups stockpiled in case you need to heal your troops in larger than 30-minute batches. And I personally try to do 30-minute batches and have a high hospital capacity, but if your hospitals are filling up, you're going to need to use those Speedups. You're going to want to have a bunch of buffs available. And actually, I'll show this to you over here. Not all of these buffs can sort of stack with each other. For instance, with battle enhancement buffs, you can only have one of these: attack, defense, or anti-reconnaissance. Troop capacity is also really excellent, but I believe that it does not stack with deceptive troops, which makes it look like you have twice as many troops in your, city and armies, I believe, if you get scouted. These buffs are crucial in war, particularly increasing your troop capacity. Now, why is troop capacity such an important buff to have? If you have 25% more troops or 50% more troops, even if your commanders are lower level, you might be able to brute force your way out of some situations. And ultimately, although these buffs cost resources, well, really gems to acquire, they save you resources in healing that you might have to do because you were more successful in your attacks. Now, the next tip, and I know this is something you might have expected, is to have a bunch of teleports as well as peace shields available. I've got a whole heck of a lot of teleports and peace shields. Here's the peace shields. Man. So it's really crucial to have a bunch of teleports and peace shields available because you are going to need them. And you're not going to want to pay full price if you're in the middle of war. Now, next up, and I'm sure you were expecting this, I've talked about this several times, is to level up your hospitals. You want a high hospital capacity so you don't have troop deaths. When you're defending your city, if you are defending your city, your hospitals fill up before any of your troops are going to die. Super crucial that you have a high capacity to make sure that those don't actually fill up. Especially, by the way, if you're sending many armies into open field combat. Now, this next one is kind of important, which is that you can set groups of commanders that are essentially presets that you send into combat very, very easily and rapidly. I'm going to send my troops back to town now so I can show you exactly what this looks like. I've got some number of PvP and PvE presets already in place. So for instance, if I go to attack a barbarian, here we go. And we'll do this in just a second. The troops are back to town. You can set presets for your armies by using the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the right-hand side of your screen. One of my presets for PvP is this combination with Minamoto and Cao Cao. If you wanted to set an army, you tap the green arrow, you pick which slot you're going to save over. In this case, I'll replace slot 5 because that's the one I'm already using. Hit confirm, and there you go. If you tap that button, you can, the arrow pointing in that's blue, you can get a look at the save slots you already have, and you can select one of those to load in. You can also just do that by tapping the numbered spots that are here. Having those done in advance has helped me in a number of situations where I was pinched for time. Now, the final advice I would give is to use keys and apply mysterious sculptures if you've been saving those up. I'll give an example. I had Kusunoki on the bubble for unlocking his expertise skill. I needed to put like 30 more sculptures on him. I knew war was coming, potentially, so I dropped a bunch of sculptures on him and got his expertise skill. Totally worth having those skills on the battlefield rather than having them in the form of sculptures, even though you might want to be saving up sculptures because the devs have in fact confirmed that new commanders are coming. We don't know how we're going to get them. We don't know when they're going to arrive. We don't even know if the universal sculptures will work for them, but I'm probably going to save up some number of those just so that I can try to max out one of those commanders early on. So, my friends, I hope that this list has been helpful, and if I come up with anything else, I'm absolutely going to add it to the checklist that I have in the comments of this video. I also want to give a huge shout out to my friend and Alliance member Mojo, who helped me come up with this list, which hopefully please do use the list, add to it by sharing in the comments, and let's all get better at preparing for war. War is a crucial part of this game, and you don't want to be caught flat-footed. Please do like and subscribe if this was helpful, and until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.